What's going on, guys? I am back with another deck profile, and this time we have Fire King Tri-Brigades. And we're going to be going with a budget of under $100, so everything you see in this deck profile should be under $100. You get yourself 3 structure decks, and then everything else that you see should be about $65 to $70 and no more. So yeah, let's get right into it. First, we have our main Tri-Brigade starters. We have our 3 Tenki and 3 Fractal. Tenki just searches Fractal, and Fractal is a 1.5 card combo. Fractal plus any BBW gets you to Ponyx and full Ponyx combo, plus IP. So, very good card. It can also get you into Revolt if you have another discard, but the main combo you're going to be going for is going to be the 2-card combo to get you into Ponyx, because typically the other 3 cards in your hand will be interruptions or very important cards for future gameplay. So yeah, we have our 3 Tenki, 3 Fractal, then we have our Tri-Brigade kit at 2. Very good secondary starter. If you see it with something like Ponyx, Kieran, or Sanctuary, it can basically get you into the full Tri-Brigade and Fire King combo. So very good card. Very synergistic because it can be destroyed off of Garunix. So yeah, then we have our 2 Nerval, used to search your Tri-Brigade at the end of your Fractal combo. You do want it at 2 because if you keep it at 1, it gets really bricky. If you see it in your hand, you can't do your full combo, even if you have Fractal in your hand alongside of it. But if you do have Fractal plus Nerval, then you still can if you run 2 Nerval. I found myself really having a bad time whenever I bricked on 1 Nerval, so I decided to up it to 2, and I haven't looked back since. Then we have our Karas. He is what is searched to your hand when Nerval is sent to the grave by the kit. He is what discards your BBW on your 1.5 card combo, and he is probably the most important part of the combo as well. So yeah, highly recommend having him at 1. You don't really need him at any more than 1 though, because if you see him in your hand, he's not necessarily a brick. Then you have your 1 Tri-Brigade Revolt. It is searchable in this deck through the Bearbrum combos, but even if you draw it, and you see it in your hand, it's a really good card because every single monster in your deck basically is a BBW. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's a very good card. It's never a brick almost, and it is part of your Tri-Brigade package, so highly recommend keeping it in along with the Bearbrum. So then we have our 1-for-1. 1-for-1 special summons the Ponyx and gets you into full Ponyx combo. Speaking of Ponyx, 1-for-1, if you see it with the kit, or if you see it with something like Garunix or Nerval, it can be a really good card to have to create some really funny combos that can catch your opponent off guard without even normal summoning too. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's a really good starter for the deck, and it's very cheap. Then we have our 3 Ponyx. The 1-card starter for the deck. It's the only pure 1-card starter that you don't need a discard for, and it does basically everything for you. It special summons itself from the hand. It adds itself back to your hand during the next standby phase after it's been destroyed, and it adds you a Fire King spell or trap. So yeah, it does everything for you. Mandatory 3 of in budget versions of the deck, and probably up until the February support comes out. Then we have our Garunix. This is the heart and soul of the deck. The only reason I don't run it at 3 is because it's so recurable and it's so searchable. Every single time you do your Ponyx combo, you're basically going to be searching for Garunix unless you already have it in your hand. So Garunix is a mandatory at least 2 of, because if your opponent deals with it, you want to have the backup. But if you run it at 3, it can get bricky, because if you have 1 in the grave and then 1 in your hand, one of them is going to be doing nothing. So yeah, highly recommend keeping it at least 2, but 3 is not necessary. So yeah. Then we have our 3 Kieran. If the Fire King deck was an assassin, the Kieran is the dagger. Quick effect: destroy one of the fire monster in your hand or face of field and special summon this card. Can be used to dodge hand traps like Imperm, Veiler. Can be used to dodge targeting in general. Can be used to destroy other fires in your hand, things like Barong. If you see it with Barong on your opponent's turn, you have basically full combo. Yeah, very good card. It's not easily recurable, which is why we run it at 3. And you also want to see it in your hand almost every chance you get. Even seeing 2 is not bad because you use 1 on your turn and 1 on your opponent's turn. So yeah, very, very good card. Highly recommend running it at 3 and no less. Arvada. Arvada is probably the second best extender in the deck behind Kieran. It can get you into some pretty nutty 2-card combos alongside Ponix, and it's also very useful for dodging hand traps like Droll and Ash, which are 2 of the most impactful hand traps against you. So want to max this out anytime we're not running a more expensive engine like Sinful Spoils and stuff like that. So also it's searchable off of Tenki. So if you see Tenki plus Fractal, you want to be able to search something else that's good. And Arvada is one of those choices. And the next choice is going to be your Rangbali or Hanuman. He used to be called Hanuman at least. I like the name Hanuman. I wish they would have kept him like that. But for now, I guess we'll go with Rangbali. Spell and Trap Negate, very, very underrated. Extremely easy to get into. I highly recommend you don't cut it. I know a lot of people have been cutting it. I think that's just because they don't see the value in it. They don't see how easy it is to get into. They don't see how useful it can be against certain matchups and certain problem cards. Evenly is a big problem card for this deck. Then we have our Barong. He's necessary for your mainline first turn combo. He's not necessary to have at more than 2. I would say 2 should be the max that you have him at. Because after turn 1, you really don't need him. He's recurable off of your special summons, which are Kieran and Arvada, and also the Circle of the Fire King. And you really don't want to see him in your hand. He's only good if you see him with Sanctuary or Kieran, and that might seem like a good ratio, but it's really not. A lot of times you see Barong with basically a whole brick hand, and you just never want to see that. Fire King Island, very good card. If it's outed, you do have issues, so you could run this at 2. You could go like cut an Immolation and bring Island to 2, but I highly don't recommend running this field spell package at more than 4. You could go 3 Sanctuary, 1 Island. You could go 2 Sanctuary, 2 Island, but I highly don't recommend you run it at more than 4. I run it at 3 because I find a lot of times the first time I'm able to resolve Island is all I really need. After that, I can rely on things like Kieran, Garunix, Arvada, and Rangbali to get into my grind game, along with Ponix adding itself back to the hand every standby phase. So yeah, I think 3 is enough, and I think this ratio is probably the best ratio, if not 2-2. So yeah, then we get into our Circle of the Fire Kings. Can be used as an extender, can actually be used as almost like an interruption on your opponent's turn. Because if you do your full combo and then you have either Arvada or Hanuman in the grave, you can Circle of the Fire Kings to destroy your Garunix Eternity to then special summon those cards alongside 2 more fire monsters. So yeah, very good card. I highly recommend you don't cut it. I know a lot of pros cut it, but it's really good. It's a lot like the Rangbali in that it has like a lot of secret interactions that come up so often. Highly recommend you don't cut that. Then we have our Immolation or Skyburn. Skyburn is a really good card. It's good against back row decks. It's good for breaking boards when you go second. And it's good for protection because when it's in the grave, you can banish it from your card to protect one of your Fire King cards from being destroyed. And that does include your field spell. So keep that in mind. Then we have Called by the Grave. The 2 biggest hand traps that are issues against this deck is going to be Ash and Droll. And this is just a way to deal with those. So I would say it's mandatory unless you have Crossout Designator. If you have Crossout Designator, I would run that instead. DD Crow, we run it at 3. You don't have to run it at 3. You could take out 2 of them and put in the Droll, but you do want to have at least 1 in your deck because if you start off with Ponix in your hand and you have full Fractal combo to get into Shurag, and you'll be able to search the EDOPro at the end of your turn to give you an extra interruption. So EDOPro is really good. On top of that, it's a Wing Beast, which means it can be used as your second card for your fractal combo. So keep that in mind. It's really good. It's can be used as an extension for the deck, and it's decent in the meta right now. So it's not great, but it's good enough that with all the other uses that we have for it in the deck, we want to run it at least 1, and I want to run it at 3, especially in a budget deck. So then we have our Ash Blossom. It's a fire, so same concept as EDOPro, but instead for the Fire King side of things. If you see it with Ponix, it can be used as a discard to extend, or as a destruction target to extend off of your Fire King island. So keep that in mind. But also it's just, you know, one of the best hand traps in the game, probably the best hand trap in the game. Besides the next card, which is Infinite Impermanence, which is the only actual hand trap in the game that actually functions well like a hand trap. Best hand trap in the game. You basically mandatory in every deck that can run it. Negate your opponent's monsters. Be careful when you use it against decks that have interactions like Kieran that can destroy or send their cards somewhere to dodge targeted negation. But also it can be used to mess up back row decks if you set it in the column where they have a let's say a floodgate. You can use it to turn off floodgates. So keep that in mind. Very good card. Basically mandatory. Do not cut. Do not cut. Yeah, that's going to be your 42 card main deck. You could cut it down to 41 by cutting one immolation. You could even cut it down to 40 by cutting a crow. Another change you could do is switching 2 crow for 2 droll, or even 2 crow and a skyburn for the 3 droll, which would be nice as well. But the way I have it here is just the way I prefer, so be sure to experiment with your deck and see how you like it and what works best for you. So now we're going to move on into the extra deck. We have Garrunic's Eternity. This is our main Fire King. This is our only Fire King monster in the extra deck, and it is a very good card. It by itself, I mean, just being able to quick effect Dark Hole your opponent is just, when your opponent special summons a monster, is just incredible. I recommend it at 2 because a lot of times you'll go into it on your opponent's turn using Sanctuary, and then you'll want to go into it on your turn as well to clear their board, and also to trigger some of your effects. Let's say you have like an Arvada on your field and you have 2 level 8s, you can go into Garrunic's Eternity, destroy all the other monsters on your field, including Arvada, to then go ahead and special summon something off of Arvada. So yeah, pretty good. I highly recommend running it at least 2. Decks that are really good against destruction, I typically take one out for the Dingirsu that I have here on the side. So keep that in mind. You don't want to use the second one most likely against decks like Unchained or in the mirror match. So you'll side that out for the Dingirsu to avoid those interactions. So next we have our Zealantis, and that's just literally to link over the Shureg, which is our main Tri-Brigade combo goal. Fractal plus any BBW gets you into Shureg, which then gets you into Ponix without normal summoning. So the Ponix then gets normal summoned and you're able to go full combo, and it's a really good card. You can summon it on your opponent's turn with Revolt to go ahead and banish a card on their field, or you can even keep it on the field to then, you know, special summon your Kieran or something like that to then go into full combo and non-target banish something whenever you're ready, because Kieran is a quick effect. So you basically have a quick effect non-target banish. Very good synergy there. Then you have the Ferrigite. Ferrigite is used a lot of time to bridge you in between your Tri-Brigade and your Fire King stuff. It's pretty necessary in the deck. It is used in some of the combos. So if you want to check those out, go and check out my combo videos on my channel and let me know what you think about those. Next we have our Bear Brum. This is used to get you into Revolt. We do have some combos on the channel that go into it, so go check those out. But I highly recommend keeping it in the deck to search you the Revolt, because Revolt is very good in the deck. Relinquished Anima. This actually used to be Amblo Whale. But I took out the Amblo Whale because it just wasn't that useful in this version of the deck. I think until you really get into the Sinful Spoil stuff, it's not as good. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Relinquished Anima for now because it's so easy to get into. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 level 1 targets, and a lot of people just don't think about the anima, or they summon like an Appaloosa, and then you threaten two of your opponent's Appaloosa procs with just one Onyx. So yeah, very good, very good. And you have Link Karibo. It's necessary for some of your combos. If it wasn't, I wouldn't run it. Almirage, also necessary for some of your combos. If it wasn't, I wouldn't run it. Sunlight Wolf. Sunlight Wolf is an extremely good card. It replaces Rugal in some of the Tri-Brigade combos, and it gives you so much advantage because it's a fire. So if you're able to special summon under it, you add back Kieran from the grave, and then Kieran can pop it because it's a fire. So that basically gets your whole combo going, and there are some combos that utilize it. So go check out my channel to see what those combos look like. Heat Soul is there when you can't get into the Tri-Brigade stuff. It's really good for your pure Fire King combos. You draw 2 cards and you set up your full Fire King combo with like 1.5 cards. Extremely good, especially when you run 9 hand traps and 3, 4 settable interruptions, 5 settable interruptions. So very good card because it gets you into draws. IP Masquerena, necessary for some of the combos, extremely good in the deck. Sometimes Masquerena is the best thing to go into, and you can't even tell because you don't, like, in the future, there's just so many things that you can do to be able to get more materials in order to link off with the IP. Then we have our Nightmare Phoenix. Very good card. SP Little Knight can replace both of these, but because this is a budget deck, we have to run both of these. Very good target for IP. It is a fire, so that does come up, and it can be co-linked off of being summoned when you do the 2-card combo. So you can discard and then get a draw. So keep that in mind. On top of that, a lot of the cards that you discard are decent. So think about like Kit, Garunix, Immolation, things like that are really good discards. Nerval. So yeah, very good card for the deck. If you don't have SP, I highly recommend putting it in the deck. Appaloosa, pretty self-explanatory. Monster negates out the wazoo. Tri-Brigade basically just ends on this as their regular board. So yeah, it's basically mandatory in this version of the deck. It does end some of your combos, so yeah, very good for the deck and highly recommend keeping it in. Now let's move on to the side. In the side deck we have Dingirsu. This is just to replace the second Garunix Eternity in case we're going against a deck that does really good against destruction. Then we have Hita. Hita typically replaces either the Anima or the Nightmare Phoenix in order to go against fire decks and be able to take their resources from them and use them as material. Then we have Race Velger, however the heck you say this card. It's a good card for going first. So when you're going first, I recommend swapping it for Anima, because when you get through your full combo on turn 1 and then you get through everything on turn 2, you're out of targets to be able to summon off of the Tri-Brigade stuff. So once you get to turn 3, your Tri-Brigades are basically useless. So typically you want to go ahead and find something to summon, and this is going to be that. Next we have Alpha Master the Beast. It's a beast, so it works kind of like EDOPro in that it can be used as a discard, but it's actually better going second because you can go Alpha to special summon itself and then return one of your opponent's cards back to their hand, and then it returns itself back to the hand, so it can still be used as a discard, or you can special summon it to then go ahead and use it for things like link summoning and stuff like that. So very good card going second. Highly recommend you put it in your deck if you're on a budget and you don't have anything better, because it does come in the structure deck. So very, very good card. I actually run it in some of my more expensive builds. So highly recommend. Then we have Droll and Lockbird, one of the top 3 to 5 best hand traps in the game. I would run it if EDOPro wasn't a wing beast, but because EDOPro is a wing beast, I'm going to keep it over the Droll. But a lot of times I will side out the 2 EDOPro for 2 Droll, or even one of the Skyburn for a 3rd Droll. Solemn Judgment, extremely good card. One of the biggest issues for this deck is having these cards outed. So a lot of times this will protect you from that. And I've sided in basically every single time I go first. So yeah. Then we have our Herald of the Abyss. Herald of the Abyss, this is basically for Pearly, or just basically towers monsters that you can't get rid of. It's also good against some other decks like Dragon Link when they put out the Borland, because it's kind of hard for you to take care of the Borland. So yeah, Herald of the Abyss, very, very, very good card. Comes in the structure deck. Highly recommend running it. Cheap. Nothing more to be said. So yeah, that's going to be your deck profile. If you liked it, like and subscribe. Check out my other videos. I do have some combo videos up for this deck profile, so go check those out. Let me know how you like those. And I'm out. Peace.